Alright, so let's review what we did in the last video. If I press play, you can see that we have this looping idle animation. Let's go ahead and export this out so that we can use it inside of Unreal. The format that I prefer to use is FBX. It's probably the most preferred format that you can use. Every studio I've worked at has always sort of used that, unless they had their own proprietary engine. Whether you're using Unity or Unreal, FBX is going to be your thing. So I'm going to go ahead and name this robot_idle.fbx, and I set up my own little folder on the desktop to export all these FBXs out to. I'm actually going to import them in from this folder and then probably just delete this folder later. In my settings here, I want to make sure bake animation is on and that the start frame and the end frame are 30. Now down here, if you don't see it, you might have to scroll down and look for FBX export, and then you can select robot idle and you can export that. Let's go ahead and hit yes to replace that. Now the other thing we want to do is, if you don't see the FBX in there, you can go to Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, and somewhere down towards the bottom, you'll see FBX to Maya, and then turn on Loaded and Auto Loaded. That's if you don't see that. But generally it's on by default. Alright, so what I'd like to do is delete the animations that are currently on here, and so that we're looking at just the T-pose. So I'm going to go ahead and make this -1. Now the easier way to do this is that we just make sure that we save off one file like this, and just do, where it's in the T-pose with no animations on it, and just name that as robot static mesh. So, but for now, what we're going to do is select all of the things that we had set keys on to do the idle animation. So if you remember, and let's actually turn off polygons so we could just look at the joints and the NURBS controllers. So the NURBS circles or controllers were the ones that we had keyed, as well as the joints, really just from here all the way up, so to the arms and stuff. So instead of having to select, each individual joint that we had keyed, what we can do is, while we're still in T-pose, select the bone right above the root, and then if you remember our mel command, see if I could pop this out. We had typed this mel command, select-high. We also created a shelf button, so I'll show you that again. And with that, you can run this. You can see there's this little play button here. It'll run this command. Or if you type it in here, so let's show you another way. Select-high. We hit enter, it'll run that way. Another way of doing it is to add it to our shelf. And I could do select-high. And forgive me, I know I showed you this in a previous video, but sometimes I feel like redundancy is okay. So what I did is I highlighted it, and I middle mouse clicked and dropped it here. And it's asking me, is it a Python script? Is it mel? Well, it's definitely a mel command. So I'm going to click on that. And now when I select this, I also have this button that I can use. And what I'm going to do is, inside this graph editor, and if you don't see the graph editor, you can go to Windows, Animation Editor, and then look for Graph Editor here, which is the first option, and that'll add it to your scene. If it docks funny, like off to the side, you can select Graph Editor and just sort of dock it where you need it to go. And all I'm going to do is, in my Graph Editor, if you don't see it, and you can hold Alt and Shift, and if you move your mouse up and down while holding the right mouse button down, so Alt and Shift are held. Actually, I think it's just Alt. No, it's Alt and Shift. If you hold Alt and Shift and your right mouse button, you can scale it up and down, or you can make it more compact so you can see it. So it takes a little bit of practice. I'm just going to highlight all of these keys. So these keys correlate. So if I select these back keys, these are all the keys that we had set for the upper torso, and that represent frame 30. So if I delete this, you can see I got rid of frame 30. So I'm going to leave it at -1 because I want to keep this pose. Highlight everything, delete it. I'm going to select this root here, do the same thing, delete it. Select this foot, highlight everything, delete it. Same thing with this one here. And I'm just scrolling my wheel in and out to zoom out of that. And I think we got everything. So if I move this, see nothing is keyed. Let's turn our polygons back on. And then, which we kind of should have done from the first place, is let's just save this as robot static mesh. And I just happen to have one that I had set up before this video. So we've got the idle animation that we, let's see. So we have this. So let's go ahead and, yeah, it looks like we've got the idle animation baked out. Let's take a look at that one last time. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to go back and open up my idle animation scene and just go through those settings one last time. So from 0, here's from 0. We did File, Export All, and then Robot Idle is what I named it, and then I made sure that Bake Animation was on and that we were exporting from 0 to 30. I'm going to go ahead and hit Export All. And that should be all that we need for this video. In the next one, we'll go ahead and, starting with this robot static mesh file, we'll go ahead and start animating a world cycle.